Hey, all my fantasy football friends. Welcome to the Multiple First Dynasty Football channel here on YouTube. This is Tony Stoll, Stash X on the Sleeper app, coming to you today with some further coverage of the 2023 incoming rookie class. Today, we will be discussing the wide receivers. I am joined, as always, by my partner, the great and powerful Greg the Velociraptor. How are you, sir?
It's wide receiver o'clock, my friend. Let's do it.
Receiver o'clock. Now, widely considered to be probably the shallowest group of players in this draft here. A direct juxtaposition, if you will, from the 22 class, which was very deep at receiver. So hopefully you load it up there because, we'll chop it up, but I think you'll see it's not necessarily the deepest wide receiver class, at least at the top. But, of course, at the top of the list, we are going to be talking about everyone's wide receiver one. I mean, the consensus wide receiver one from every mock draft, every source that I see. We're talking man who sits in tier one by himself, Ohio State Buckeye, Jackson Smith and Jigba, or JSN, as he's more commonly referred to, the 6'1", 196-pound junior who blew up the combine. Tell me why JSN is the best wide receiver in this class, Greg.
Uh, I mean, as a sophomore with two future first round picks on the field with him in Wilson and Olave, Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, he went 95, 1606, 16.9 per reception and 9 touchdown, and the tape matches that. This is a 6'1", 196-pound player who ran a 4.53 at his pro day, none of which is outstanding, but it's all perfectly good enough in a class where some of the guys have some height problems. He doesn't really have any of that. He's not huge, but he's got plenty of height to play inside and outside, even though he was more or less a slot-only guy in college. There aren't any real physical limitations. Super elite quickness both before and after the catch. Ridiculously good route runner. He's not super duper physical. It's a very, very safe player. My ceiling comp here is there are shades of Antonio Brown. That is something I see on his best plays, where Antonio Brown was not the most physical person, but he was just always open.
Yeah.
Great hands, just good. I feel like the median outcome here is something like Julian Edelman or Santonio Holmes. And I feel like a really bad outcome is like Kadarius Toney without the health problems, where maybe he doesn't have the volume because he's not super physical and he gets pushed off some routes. But I feel like that's a low probability floor, and that's still a pretty good outcome. Very safe player. He is my number one player. He is not on a tier by himself for me, but he is definitely the top guy in the class.
Is JSN immune to landing spot? Can he just get the worst quarterback situation, the worst offensive situation, and still be the best wide receiver in this class?
Yeah, in a full PPR, I think, in a half PPR, you could start to worry about if he ends up being a low touchdown guy. You could start to worry, but I think he's just such a safe prospect. It's hard for me to see him as lower than the second highest non-quarterback off the board.
Top 30 finish this year in redraft for JSN PPR full. Can he finish among the top 30 wide receivers
Yes.
as a rookie? Yeah, I agree.
Yes.
He can too. He should be basically an every week starter right off the rip. And even in your redraft leagues, you'll probably see him in that top 8-ish round territory.
I mean, certainly by October.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. Like you might not be an auto start in week 1, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for him. The place I see him most commonly is Houston at 12 to pair him up with whatever quarterback they end up with, and I'm cool with that. That sounds good. I can't imagine a landing spot where JSN is not my number one wide receiver.
No, I can't either. Certainly not one that would ever take him. Like, you could imagine him if you told me like he went to Philly, then all of a sudden I have some volume concerns, but they're not going to do that.
No,
right?
They're not. Yeah.
Right. So, that would be my thing. Go ahead.
Next guy up, TCU wide receiver Quentin Johnston. So there's a lot of rumors that this guy was 6'4", in the 215 range. At the pro day and at the combine, he did not measure that height nor that weight. So he came in a little smaller relatively.
He measured 6'3". It was like 6'2" and 7/8 or something.
Yeah.
6'3", I think the fact that it said 6'2",
Mhm.
even though it was real close to 6'3", really threw people. But if he'd measured 6'3" and a quarter, I think people would have freaked out less. 6'3", 208, ran a 4.49 in his pro day. Um, for in a class of small guys, this is the big guy with the premium profile.
Yep.
Um, s- uh, uh, Junior out of TCU, 60 catches, 1,069, 6 touchdowns, 17.8 per reception as a junior. Um, 19.0 career yards per reception. This is a big play guy who the pros here are he has all the traits. He is tall, he has long arms, he is fast, he has quick short area movement, especially for his size. He has big jumps. He kind of killed the combine. He does all the things. He plays inside. He plays in the slot. He plays outside. He plays in the slot. He wins on short routes, little drag routes where he gets a lot of rack. He wins downfield on contested catches. He wins in the intermediate areas. He has rack production. He's both an elusive runner, but also will bully small DBs who try to tackle him. So he's got a lot of different ways to win. He wins on manufactured touches, but does not require manufactured touches.
Yep.
Right. So, and not only does he do everything, he sometimes looks elite at all those things. The cons, he does not run sharp routes. He runs somewhat rounded routes. He is not always open, and he body catches a little too much. He carries the ball like a loaf of bread and fumbles a little too much.
Yeah.
He is generally not a clean or refined player. I think the ceiling comp here is A.J. Brown. The floor player, the bad outcome is Chase Claypool, and my median outcome is Mike Williams. He reminds me a lot of a more polished Treylon Burks.
Yeah, in your description and even those comps you listed, it really gives me the idea that this guy is like one of those unpolished gems, right? Like this is someone who has all the physical traits in the world. He's going to need to hit that right coaching staff, that right situation that can bring the most out of him. If they do, though, if he hits there, I think you could have a mega upside player. I think you're going to see Quentin Johnson be very volatile in your rookie drafts. And I see that in the mocks I look at now. He falls anywhere in that like 6 to 12 range. He could go anywhere in there. So you're going to have to make a decision about Quentin Johnson. All of us will, and where exactly he falls amongst the other players, because he may fall into your lap at the end of the round. He might not be there. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens with this guy. I think at cost right now, I'm in on him. So long as he gets like that top 20 or so capital we're looking at. I think Baltimore would be like a bad spot for him, but
especially after OBJ.
yeah. But mostly, I don't. I'd be happy with just about any landing spot for QJ. And as long as, like I said, he gets in that top 20 range, I'd be perfectly happy using a top 10 pick on him, top 10 rookie pick.
Yeah, I think he's sliding up to me towards maybe the back of the JSN Gibbs Levis kind of tier.
Sure.
Um, and I was pleased with the film I saw.
Yeah, that's QJ. Check it out. He's looking like a monster there for TCU. Next guy is Mr. Jordan Addison. So we're going to go a different direction in terms of size. Jordan Addison is the 5'11 junior. He's a junior, right?
5'11 junior from USC, a Pitt transfer.
USC. Yep.
So played 2 years at Pitt with Kenny Pickett, and then he went and played with Caleb Williams. So let's be clear here. Every snap this guy's ever taken has been with a future first-round quarterback, right? That's an advantage. He is 5'11". That's not bad. 173. That is not good. 4.49 speed, which is fine for a wide receiver, but his weight-adjusted 40 is pretty terrible. Actually, it's like 23rd percentile. Very low. As a sophomore at Pitt with Kenny Pickett, he won the Biletnikoff Award with 100 catches, 1593, and 17 touchdowns, 15.9 per reception. Transferred to USC as a junior, had a down year compared to his sophomore year, 59 catches, 875, 8 touchdowns, and 14.8 yards per reception. I want to acknowledge here before we go on with Jordan Addison. I think the consensus is that it's JSN tier 1 and then Johnson, Addison, and then the next guy on tier 2.
Yeah.
And I had Johnson up, and I think Addison's probably the consensus wide receiver 2 right now. But the pros for him are the elite quickness, the elite production, elite route running, some special catches, body control, hands in the air, and plus run after catch ability, because he often catches the ball with a lot of separation. The cons are this is a guy who is tiny and thin and lacking elite speed. He has had some concentration drops issues. The decline from his sophomore to junior season is a bit of a red flag. He is a genuinely atrocious blocker.
That's bad.
Like,
yeah.
He's really bad. Like he whiffs he ruins plays by whiffing blocks he needs to make sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And so, there are some issues. I think the ceiling comp here is Jalen Waddle. I think there's a lot to love about the prospect, and I think he's a top 10 player. I'm not out on him. But Jalen Waddle's another guy who didn't check all the physical boxes, but he produced and it translated immediately, right?
Yep.
My median expectation is more like Juju or Jahan Dotson,
which
are
perfectly
perfectly good. Yeah. But I also think getting limited to a plus wide receiver 3 on a team is a possibility here. And it wouldn't absolutely shock me if he fell out of the first round in the NFL draft.
Yeah. Especially
and you would have to go back to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And 173 is just real little. It's can you stay on the field in 2 wide receiver sets if you're going to blow up running plays by not being able to block your cornerback at all? Right? There's some questions about that. That's where I'm at with Addison. How do you feel about Addison?
Yeah, I'm excited for the player because I know he can ball on the field. But all the measurables sucking, the weight being what it is, it's just makes him so volatile. I do expect to have some exposure to him a good bit, only because I think he will fall both in the NFL draft and the rookie drafts. It's going to be really interesting to see the landing spot for this player. But if you can get him in your 111, 112 territory, at least if you're drafting right now, I mean it seems like a really good value for Jordan Addison. But the red flags are there, and it's going to be tough to reconcile everything with him.
Yeah, and I don't want to oversell the negativity.
Yeah.
I have him as my 10th prospect right now, but I think. If some of the viewers are looking at 2 or 3 sets of opinions here, there are some people who look at Jordan Addison and don't see any negatives, and I think that's wrong.
Yeah, there is. I mean, the size is a negative. He's undersized to play NFL receiver, and if he already can't block technically, it's going to be tough for him to get on the field. But if he can beat his man and get open, there's a place for him. So it's interesting. You're going to have to make your own decision on Jordan Addison. We're just here to give you the ups and downs of what he may bring for your team. So for me personally, I have it broken down as JSN being the tier 1 receiver in the class, and then QJ, Jordan Addison, and this next guy, Mr. Zay Flowers, the senior from Boston College, all compromising a tier 2 together. So Zay Flowers, 5'9", 182 pounds, ran a 4.42 40-yard dash. Talk to me about Zay Flowers.
Yeah, so just like a quick comparison. So he's 9 pounds heavier than Jordan Addison, but he's also 2 inches shorter, and the thickness shows on tape, right? So he's another little guy, but he's like a tier bigger than Jordan Addison. I just want to keep that in mind because we've got some more little guys going. There's small and there's extra small. Okay, so he's a small guy. So he's a sophomore breakout player. His best season was as a senior, 78 catches, 1,077 yards, 12 touchdowns, 13.8 yards per reception. His career numbers, 200 catches, 3,056 receiving yards, 29 touchdowns, and 15.3 yards per reception over 57 career games. This is a very experienced player with a lot of production. He is a senior declare, which we don't love, but he had the sophomore breakout, so don't let the senior declare totally overtake you, right? Like there are some guys who really could have come out early and they just like college or whatever, or the NIL is changing things a little, right? So
Yep.
When they have the early breakout, you give them a little slack for being a senior declare. This is a guy who has slot wide versatility, and I believe this will translate. I do think he can play as an undersized wide player in the NFL. I think he will play slot in 3 wide receiver sets, but I don't think there's any reason he can't be, on his own on the outside in 2 wide receiver sets. He works well both over the middle and at the boundary. He's a natural home run hitter with elite run after catch skills. He runs sharp, crisp routes. He has to clean up. He gets lazy at times, but his good routes are incredibly crisp, right? Like when he's focused.
Yep.
He is small, but he fights his defensive backs hard as a blocker. I think this is going to help him be a 90% snap share guy. You see him pancake little defensive backs, right? Like, your fellow 5'9" defensive backs, he puts them on their back. He's got a pro-level sideline toe tap, good ball tracking when the ball's coming over his shoulder, and 57 career carries. So he has, the potential to get an end around per game at the NFL level. And if he scores a rushing touchdown and a half per season, and you're throwing 200 rushing yards and 1.5 touchdowns a year on the receiving profile, he could be really good. The cons, look, he's 5'9". He's a little guy. He's got a small catch radius. He does not have big jumps. So some of those things could not translate. He has a few ugly drops. He played for a smaller program in an okay conference and is not an early declare. So, those are some red flags. Sometimes he breaks off his routes short of the stick on 3rd and 4th down in a way that I think coaches won't love. I think
that's a problem in the NFL.
He makes some weird decisions on some of those 2-way go routes. Mm-hmm. My comp for him, I think the ceiling is Devonta Smith, and the median outcome is Sterling Shepard. Without the extensive bad injury.
Yeah, it was just Shepard who missed 70% of every season for 4 years or something crazy.
Right, but we've seen him be a very effective PPR machine.
Absolutely, yeah.
This is a guy who's going to be a lot better in your full PPR than your half PPR. Whereas Quentin Johnston, I think that's it matters less.
Yeah, Johnston's more tuned for standard or the lesser point per catch.
The half PPR. Yeah, right.
The half,
right,
yeah.
The home run hitter guy. So, yeah, Zay Flowers, good player. Follow the draft capital. Vegas has him as the second highest odds to be the wide receiver 1.
Yeah, he's been flying up boards for the last month or so. I just keep seeing him higher and higher, both from the analysts and the mock drafters, everything. A couple things I want to kind of reiterate a little bit is we kind of went through his stats pretty quickly. This is a guy who had 3,000 total receiving yards in his career in college. That's awesome. That's tremendous production. We love seeing that, and we can totally cut him a little slack on being the senior declare. So I love seeing all that production. It tells me that his size is not going to hinder him as much as maybe at face value you think it would, because he has all that production. This is also a guy, in terms of fit and body shape stuff, this is a guy who I think 20 years ago, if he came out, would be a 3rd down running back. But right now, with what the NFL is, he translates to more of a slot receiver, and that's what he's been his life, right? So,
yes. Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking Eric Metcalf, or for you Browns fan, or yes, those 3rd down backs who also return punts.
Yeah, that's kind of who he could have been in eras past in the NFL. But in the modern era of the NFL, he's a slot receiver with, some outside the numbers chops.
Yes.
I anticipate having a good bit of Flowers, and assuming Flowers goes ahead of Addison in the draft, between those two guys, I'm just going to let NFL Capital sort them out for me. Whichever one gets higher picked, pretty much regardless of landing spot for each guy, that's who I'm going to have ranked higher.
I think that's mostly how I'm going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's mostly how I'm going to be. I I had it the way you had it going into my process here, and I thought Johnston really like stood out. I think he's going to be, assuming they all get similar draft capital, he's going to be ahead of the other two no matter what.
Yeah.
But for me, but I'm going to follow the draft capital between Flowers and Addison.
But if you're telling me I could get the fourth rookie wide receiver as Zay Flowers and have him be someone who got first round NFL capital, and maybe I'm getting him in like the 112 201 area of my rookie draft, all of a sudden this wide receiver class looks like it has some good depth to it, and I'm pretty excited about that. So that's some cool stuff there. But that ends kind of the higher tiers of these receivers. We're going to get into some players here that kind of project as maybe second round NFL picks.
Yeah, I think all of these players. I think all. It wouldn't shock me
Some of
if
these,
a couple of these guys had a shot to
Yeah.
sneak into round one.
Yeah.
Jalen Hyatt gets some round one buzz, but yeah, this is. I think on most people's board, this is two tiers. This next five guys, and it's actually so. If you'll see this my board, I have Rashee Rice, Marvin Mims, Cedric Tillman, Jalen Hyatt, and Josh Downs. I think on most people's boards, Hyatt and Downs are a tier here, and then the next three guys are the next tier, and I just can't get to that. We'll go through them, but I wanted to start by acknowledging that I'm not where where the consensus is, and people are kind of all over the place on this area of the draft. But I wanted to give it to you how I saw it, but also make sure you know that like we have some humility here. We can be very wrong on this.
Totally.
And the consensus is a little different here.
Yeah, it gets murkier the further down you go. But we're going to talk about Rashee Rice. That would be Greg's wide receiver 5 in the class.
Yeah, so I was very impressed by Rashee Rice. Senior out of SMU, 6'1", 204, ran a 4.51 40. So look, there are definitely some cons here, but so the senior breakout, 96 catches for 1,355 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 14.1 per reception as a senior. He had a semi breakout as a junior as a slot receiver, playing second fiddle to Danny Gray, who was a third-round pick last year, then had a big senior year. This is a big physical wide receiver with a good vertical jump. He is versatile in terms of role and routes. He had his second best season as a slot-only guy and his best season as a wide player. He runs pretty good routes. He makes routine circus catches. He is a really elite run blocker, and that's going to get him on the field immediately. He wins contested catches. He has good ball tracking. He is a bully in the best way and has solid run after catch. I just think the NFL is going to like him. The production profile, he had, he was the country's leading receiver as a senior. I just think this is a very solid prospect and he's going to get second round draft capital and he's going to immediately get on the field. I think the cons here are this is a non-Power 5 late breakout, non-early declare prospect, and that doesn't hit super often. He ran a somewhat limited route tree, although he ran all those routes really well. He had some drops and some fumbles, but that's about it. Like the tape from his senior year is really, really clean, and the production profile from his senior year is really outstanding. He feels a lot like Chris Godwin to me, both in terms of the tools and the play style. Godwin is a high physical comp for him and a play style comp. Godwin hit roughly his ceiling from the round 3 draft capital, and I think Godwin is roughly the Rashee Rice ceiling here. Brandon Ayuk is another close physical comp for him. Another guy who came out as a senior. I think a medium outcome is a slightly shorter Allen Lazard, who has some double-digit touchdown seasons for you. And, especially if Allen Lazard had gotten draft capital and had spent less years floundering at the beginning of his career and you've gotten more of his peak, I feel like that's a sort of a median outcome here for Rashee Rice. I think he's the safest prospect in this tier.
Yeah, he's going to produce in the level because the run blocking, he's going to be on the field, right? So we love that. This is one of those guys that we always talk about the Steelers and who they throw a dart at. Always seems to get this mega bump. And this guy strikes me as someone Pittsburgh and the next guy we're about to talk about. One of these two dudes I anticipate Pittsburgh will take a receiver in the first 3 rounds, and this is one I think they could take a shot on. He could fly up boards pretty aggressively. So, yeah, I like Rashee Rice.
Yeah. And again, he's a bigger guy in a draft that doesn't have a lot of bigger guys. Next prospect here we're looking at is Marvin Mims. Marvin Mims has been flying up draft.
He's so much, one of the biggest movers in the whole process. Yeah,
I loved it. He's a junior out of Oklahoma, 5'11", 183, ran a 4.38 at the combine. So this is another guy like Zay Flowers who is little but big little. So, right, 5'11", 183. He's not in those low 170s like Jordan Addison.
Yeah.
So I think this is an every down player. He is a big play machine. As a junior, he had 54 catches for 1,083 yards, 20.6 yards per reception.
So good.
That led the nation.
Yeah.
6 touchdowns. As a sophomore, he had 22 yards per reception.
That's really good. Yeah.
20 touchdowns on 123 career catches. That's 1 in 6. This is a guy who, I think all of this is going to translate. So led the NCAA in yards per reception. He's the biggest downfield threat in the class. He has all of the skills you want in a deep threat. He is fast. He has good ball tracking. He has good hands. He wins contested catches. He has run after catch ability. He's a plus blocker despite his size. He's good with zones. He finds holes in the intermediate zone pretty nicely, right? So, like that hole between the linebacker and the safeties, he's pretty good at getting in there on dig routes. He has an out-cutting route that will pick up first downs at the next level, right? Where he uses his speed to get the defender into the back pedal, and then he just breaks it off out to the sideline, toe tap out of bounds. And you see this over and over again especially on the left sideline. So I think there are a lot of reasons why he is rising. This is amongst the little big play guys, this is the safest one, I think. Cons, he is not long for a deep threat. He's neither tall nor does he have like long appendages. So he doesn't have that huge catch radius, although he has some pretty good jumps. He does not thrive against bump coverage. So that is a little bit of a question mark. Limited college route tree, though he has flashed all of the tools you need to be an excellent route runner at the next level. My comp here is, I think the ceiling comp is Deshaun Jackson, and the median outcome is Darnell Mooney, who I think is going to be a high plus second wide receiver for your team. If Darnell Mooney ever gets good quarterback play, I think he's going to be very good. I think that's where Marvin Mims is for me. Obviously, again, as we said last time with the running backs, half the outcomes are worse than the median, right?
Yeah,
that's the nature of gambling on these rookie picks, right? But ceiling, Deshaun Jackson, multi-time All-Pro, median outcome, Darnell Mooney.
Yeah, this guy screams a second-round rookie pick wide receiver. Especially in like that 2.4, 2.8 territory. When you're talking about the cost to acquire versus the upside, Marvin Mims is the type of player you want to take a shot on. We put that Deshaun Jackson ceiling comp out there. I mean, that's what everyone seems to be locked in on the upside, and he does possess tremendous upside. And I'm excited for Mims here.
Yep.
But very volatile. Probably one of the most volatile guys from this. The tier 3 tier, this thick tier that we're in, one of the most volatile prospects in there.
Yeah, I can see draft capital getting higher than we think too.
Yeah, he could sneak in the back of the first.
I could see him sneaking in the back of the first round of rookie drafts on good draft capital, like about 112 spot. Next, I have Cedric Tillman, redshirt senior out of Tennessee. This is an older prospect. This guy is 6'3", 213 pounds, and ran a 4.5 4.40. That's really good size in a class that lacks size.
Yeah.
Um, he was a junior breakout, 64 receptions of 1,081 yards, 12 touchdowns for 16.9 per reception. All of that is excellent as a junior. He had only 8 catches in his Tennessee career before his junior year, and then he had an injury-plagued senior season. Okay, so the pros here are this is a big, powerful player who jumps well, attacks the ball, high points. He's got all of that traditional big X receiver stuff. Excellent hands catcher, uses the frame well. He boxes out like a power forward. The cons: this is a later breakout with only one successful season, and he's not an early declare. Um, and he has a very limited route tree. Um, the uh, the Tennessee offense is also really weird and gimmicky. We'll actually get into that in a moment. I don't know how much you've watched of it. But they do this very strange thing where they will line up a receiver on the numbers, oftentimes on the numbers on the far side from the ball alignment.
Yeah.
And then they'll line up a second receiver outside of that. And then those two guys will run crossing routes with each other.
Yeah.
Where they're like isolated way away from the rest of the formation. And running these rub routes to try to get open, and it's stuff you would not be able to get away with doing in the NFL. But
yeah, they're a little more aggressive on officiating, like pick plays and rub plays like that, stuff like that. Things they're trying to make happen. Yeah.
Yeah. My ceiling comp here is Anquan Bolden Light, and my median outcome is Mo Sanu, who had like a couple of 1,000-yard seasons, right? Pretty good player. I know he hung around a while, so you kind of remember late Mo Sanu, but like peak Mo Sanu was a fringe Pro Bowler.
He was throwing touchdowns out there, man. He
Yeah.
has what, like 3 touchdown passes in his career? Does
Yeah,
Tillman do that? No,
I don't think so.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think this is a guy who is going to be most likely the second best receiver on your team, but the big possession guy. And then the ceiling is he's like a back end wide receiver 1, right? Big possession guy. He's not slow for his size either, right? But he plays like a very big guy.
Yeah, he's an interesting prospect. I think I like his teammate a little bit more. The next guy on our list, Mr. Jalen Hyatt, the other Tennessee wide receiver. But,
the consensus is that Hyatt is ahead.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So here's where Hyatt is.
Mm-hmm.
Hyatt is a 6 foot, 176 pound junior. Ran a 4.40 at the combine. And to tell you how fast he is, people were very disappointed with 4.4 flat.
Yeah, he was expecting some gangbusters speed score. Yeah.
But please notice that 6 foot 176 is Jordan Addison-esque, right? Like that is slender.
Yeah.
Right. And he has a weird build too, where he's extra slender in the lower body. Look, he's an outstanding athlete. He had explosive jumps. His quickness testing was pretty good for a fast guy, right? He has pretty good hands, pretty good ball tracking. The run after catch, he's kind of a one move and use the speed run after catch guy, but he hits enough home runs that he generates a lot of yards that way. You know what I mean? He's not like an ankle breaker so much, but still good with it. I think he has a huge ceiling, and he has some nice double moves on deep routes. I think the cons here are this is a 1-year production guy in a gimmicky offense with, unlike Tillman, who ran some more traditional routes out of those weird alignments, this is a guy who had a lot of manufactured releases. This was often the guy who was getting the rub routes run for him by Cedric Tillman.
Yeah.
He's super thin, and his route tree was basically like
nines
and posts.
Yeah.
Nines and posts. Now he has like a good wiggle at the top of his route between the 9 and the post, right?
Yeah.
But like the bust potential here is just so huge to me. The ceiling is huge and the bust is huge. That's how I think of it, right? And the other thing is he could be one of those guys who puts up decent numbers and also keeps the safety deep. And so for an NFL team, you go, oh yeah, you put those two things together, I'm real happy. But for your fantasy team, you don't care that he's keeping the safety deep
No.
and
Yeah.
opening up the middle of the field. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
So he could be better for his NFL team than fantasy is one outcome here, which is a worry, right? Some of these guys like um, I'm not being totally fair here, but like Marquez Valdez Scantling keeps the top off, can take the top off and keeps the safety back, but he doesn't produce a lot for your team.
Yep.
My ceiling comp for him is healthy Will Fuller.
Yeah.
And my median comp is like Mecole Hardman.
I got to see Hyatt land in a place with an elite quarterback. I mean, he seems so landing spot dependent to me. Like, if he doesn't have, a Herbert, Allen, Mahomes, someone really legitimate getting the ball deep, then I'm significantly less interested in this player. And he might land in a bad spot because any team that doesn't have a speed threat is going to look at Jalen Hyatt as an opportunity to add that dimension to their offense, and that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be productive in any system. So.
Yeah, and what I really want more than the quarterback is the scheme too.
Sure.
Like I want to see him someplace
high passing volume offense.
That's going to have a high passing volume, right? Because if he doesn't have a high passing volume, he could be a good player who is not worth where the juice isn't worth the squeeze for fantasy.
Sure. Who's someone at the end of the first round that maybe would be a good fit for him, like a Cincinnati down there, something like that? I've seen him mock the Kansas City regularly because they feel like they haven't filled that speed void yet. I'd love to see that. I'd be in on him there. But, if he slips to like a Houston in the second round, I'm much less interested in Hyatt.
The Bills.
Yeah, Bills would be great.
Taking Gabe Davis's job.
Sure.
That kind of I like. Yeah, so those are some good spots for him. And then finishing it out so my wide receiver 9, I bet by ADP he's the wide receiver 5 right now. So I just really want to acknowledge that.
Yep.
We've got Josh Downs. You see he's listed on Sleeper at 5'10", 175. He's a junior out of North Carolina. He measured at the combine 5'9", 171.
So small. You're right. A lot of these slight guys in here.
Yeah, 5'9", 171, right? So, like, I mean, 8 pounds lighter than Deuce Vaughn, right? I'm just putting some comparables out there, right? Like, and he ran a 4.48 40, which is like not fast enough for that size.
Yeah, you want to see like a 4.4 flat or something.
Yeah, it's 4.35.
Yeah.
Look, the guy has so much production. As a sophomore, he was 101 for 1335 and 8 touchdowns with Sam Howell. As a junior, without Sam Howell, 94 for 1,029 and 11. More touchdowns, 10.9 per reception, down considerably in that role. Like, this is a guy who has incredible production as a true junior. So 3 years. He was productive as a freshman and then 2 huge seasons. Early breakout age, early declare, incredibly smooth, run after catch, chain mover. One of the best contested catch rates for a tiny guy in the whole class. Notably smooth transitioning from catch to run after catch. This is a smooth player in every way. But, man, he is so small. He struggles so much in run blocking. And he struggles so much with jams and press and like good press coverage, right? So like he's a little guy. Every once in a while he'll slip a press coverage, right? And make something happen against it. He's not helpless. But when the defensive back gets 2 hands on him at the line, sometimes he never gets off the line. And he saw really little press coverage in college. He played almost exclusively in the slot. He got a ton of manufactured releases where he's getting chips and rubs and picks, and he's the back guy in a stack formation, right? And I kind of think he is a true slot only guy.
Yep.
And that's why I have him this far down. I think he might just be capped at 70% of snaps. And then that caps both your ceiling, that pushes both your ceiling and your floor down if you end up being a 70% snaps guy, even if you're really efficient. I think the ceiling is Tyler Lockett if he gets on the field all the time, but the median outcome here is like what you've seen from Rondale Moore, which hasn't been great.
It's been nothing almost. Yeah.
I mean, he has had some 9-catch games at times.
A few, yeah.
But you never feel great putting him in the lineup.
No.
And I worry with that with Josh Downs, right? So that's where I am on him. But I do want everybody to understand, like, if he makes himself an every down player, if I knew he was going to be an every down player, he'd be higher on my list.
Yeah, that Tyler Lockett is high praise for him. That if he hits that ceiling, then that's a mega win for wherever you got him. But that's the big 9 guys there, ladies and gentlemen. What we're saying here is these top 9 dudes are going to be ones that really could develop into a fantasy football starter. You know, someone who could be a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 for you. Everyone else outside this top 9 is a dart. You know, but you know, that's the big takeaway is these 9 dudes are the ones who you can put your money on and feel confident about.
Yeah, I think that really sums it up, and we'll be back later in the week to break down that middle group, and then the wing and a prayer guys after that.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Leave a comment, like, subscribe. Let us know how you do with these wide receivers. Do you have JSN wide receiver 1? Are you taking Addison over Flowers? Who do you like out of this middle tier of dudes here, this tier 3, tier 4 guys?
Am I crazy to have Quentin Johnston in the top tier?
I think you are, but, you know, I'm curious to know what the listeners has to say. We'll see. But thanks for tuning in. Like, subscribe, comment, all the good stuff. Take care, family.